Hi, Dr. Sherry here, and today we're going to talk about honey. And I have a funny little story that I want to share with you at the end. So a lot of people get confused between raw and pasteurized and what we're seeing in our grocery stores. So raw honey is not heated. It doesn't, it still has all the enzymes and antioxidants still in it. Whereas pasteurized honey is usually heated up, which kills all the enzymes and the antioxidants. When it's pasteurized, it also appears a lighter, and you can see through it better, whereas the raw honey usually has like more of a milky consistency to it, not as clear to see through it. Raw honey also contains about 27 minerals and 22 amino acids, and it's got thousands, probably close to about 5,000 live enzymes in it when it's raw. Also, when we're talking about honey, sweetener is sweetener, okay? But a lot of times people will compare honey to sugar, white refined sugar, table sugar. And no matter what, it's still a carbohydrate. No matter how you look at it, whether it's honey or white refined sugar, a carb is a carb is a carb. The only difference between honey and sugar as far as carbohydrates is white refined sugar is 100% pure carb, whereas unrefined honey, and unpasteurized honey is actually about 82 grams of carbohydrates. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a difference, but really a carb is a carb. Raw honey, pasteurized honey, it's all the same, white refined sugar, it's all carb. So raw honey is considered an antiviral. It's also an antifungal, an antibacterial. It's that whole list of antis again that we've talked about before. Also contains niacin and riboflavin and thiamine B6. It aids with digestion. It strengthens the immune system, helps to eliminate allergies. Absolutely fabulous for skin issues like open injuries, nothing major, but open injuries, acne, burns, any kind of a rash. I've even known people that have used it on diaper rash, and it has worked fantastically. Again, this is the raw honey. This is not the pasteurized honey. I've also heard that it works great with stabilizing blood pressure. Now, because of it being an anti-inflammatory, it can also help to relieve pain, because remember, inflammation causes pain. So by it being an anti-inflammatory, it reduces that inflammation and therefore can be used as a pain reliever. It's also been known to calm the nerves, and it's been known to treat ulcers, both internal and external, like decubitus ulcers that diabetics get. So it's also used for seasonal allergies, and what you'd want to do is buy local honey where the bees are collecting locally, so that in case you have an allergic reaction to what's local. And you want to take that about a month or two in advance, a couple teaspoons at a time, per day, to just kind of build up. And that's how usually they work with allergies. I've also known people that have used the pollen. But I not as many that have, used the pollen as the honey. And again, you want to use the local honey, because you're working towards what's local. So there's there's a million different kinds of honey. So depending on where the bees are collecting is what type of honey you're going to wind up with. So in New Zealand, the Manuka honey, which is considered the top honey you can get, and that's basically because New Zealand has the lowest of pollution, supposedly, where they collect their honey. And I say supposedly because I think in this day and age and in this world, it's almost impossible to be in a place without any kind of pollution. So I'm just going to say that it's got the least amount of pollution. So the bees do really well there. And so the Manuka honey has a really strong antibacterial property. It works with colds, sore throats, indigestion, stomach ulcers, acne. Again, the whole list goes on. Orange blossom honey is primarily produced down in the southern states or in California, where they grow a lot of citrus plants, citrus trees. So the honey takes on almost like a citrusy type of bite to it. It's very mild, but you can definitely taste it. And that would be called orange blossom honey, hence the name orange blossoms, orange trees. Okay, then there's wildflower honey. Now, wildflower honey is basically when they have no clue where the bees have been, they haven't tracked them, and they could be getting, you know, their source anywhere. And so what they do a lot of times is when they're not sure, they'll mix it all together and they'll call it wildflower, which is basically a whole mixture of all these different places. And they do that a lot of times with manufacturing, because what will happen is, you know, they'll pull from this area and this area and this area, and they don't really know, but when they mix them together, it still remains consistent in flavor. There's also one of the top-selling honeys is called clover honey, and that's one of the top-selling ones in the United States because we're just abundant in clover. And that'll really depend on, it varies in color, because you don't know where you're getting it from exactly, but clover honey is the most common. Be aware that it does vary in color, though, because it all depends on where you're getting it in the United States. So I want to tell you a quick little story, and hopefully I still have time here. I homeschool my children, and I was at a library, and there was a European woman there. I believe she was Russian, and she had her son there. And I referred to one of my children, and I called them Honey. And her little son, who was, you know, probably about 6, 7, 8 years old, he said, "Why did you call your child Honey?" I said, "Oh, it's a term of endearment. You say it in a loving way. When you care about somebody, you use the word honey." And the mother piped in and she said, "We don't call our children food." And so I was corrected on that. So, honey, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and we'll talk about honey, honey.